Hey everyone, this is Gary Kay. I am excited to be here, and I am just beside myself with the panel that you're about to see. And I think you're going to find this an engaging opportunity for you to get some great advice, but also participate. And that's the key thing here: participate in an opportunity to ask some experts some questions that you've been wanting to know the answers to, and sort of talk about what's going on in the world. This is really the first major event. Even though we are virtual, this is the first major event of the year, and of course, who better to bring it to you than Sony? Sony's one of the only companies in the world that literally owns the entire chain of content. They own everything from creating content through displaying content, audio and video content, and all sorts of other content. As you know, in the consumer world, that is everything from consumer electronics to gaming. In the professional world, it's all levels of communication. It includes digital signage, includes IoT, includes everything that you touch on a daily basis. And I'm excited to be and honored to be the moderator of today's panel, the influencer panel for the Think AV Symposium, I should say. And I want to, before we introduce our panelists, I want to actually tell you about a couple of things that you have available to you on the screen today, because this is very important. We do not want this to be a one-way conversation. Now, we're going to be talking to each other. You'll see as I introduce the panelists, we're going to be talking to each other, but we want to talk to you as well. We want you to be engaged in today's Think AV Symposium. So what I want you to notice is, real simply, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, notice that there is a questions tab. There's really two tabs there, but I want you to click on the questions tab. You have the ability to literally ask us questions. We will see those questions live. I will see those questions, and I'll ask those questions of the panelists. And there will be some questions that'll come to your mind. Don't be afraid to put them out there, because you have some experts here that can answer those questions. And there's a lot of uncertainty, so this is a great opportunity for you to actually get the answers to that uncertainty you might have. The other thing I want you to notice is the tab right next to the questions tab on the right side of that is a polling tab. That will actually light up with a red dot every time a poll question is asked. There's 4 or 5 poll questions we want you to take today. The purpose of those poll questions is to kind of get a temperature of the audience and find out what they're thinking, what you're feeling, what your thoughts are on different things, and also to help for the future Think AV Symposiums. We're going to be doing at least 2 more of these over the next 3 weeks, or I should say next 2 weeks, a week from today and a week from that. We'll be doing more of these, and we've divided them into 3 different groups. So today's sort of our experts or influencer panel, I would say. We have our inside the industry panel of experts specifically focused around design consultants next week, and then the week after we have some incredible end user opportunities for you to participate in. So let's introduce our panelists. Let's see who you're going to be talking to today. First up, we have Anna Baker. Anna is, this is an incredible opportunity. I'm shocked that I'm going to be on the same event with Anna. She's the president and CEO of OAAA, which is the outdoor, technically it stands for the Outdoor Advertising Association of America. And you know, digital signage is, interestingly enough, the future of advertising. For a little background on me, my name is Gary Kay, and why I'm here. I have kind of 2 roles in here today. I founded Rave Pubs, and we are a publication that covers all sorts of the AV, UCC, and digital signage market. But I also teach advertising at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Of course, I see the rapid adoption of digital signage in the advertising world. And as digital signage moves towards programmatic, which a lot of the OAAA stuff is already programmatic, it's going to be a giant potential future. And it's a part of the future that you should be playing in. Second up, we have, I'm totally excited about the fact that I've been on a panel with Jose Avalos before from Intel. He's the vice president of the IoT group and general manager of the visual retail group within Intel. Jose and I have been on panels before at the Digital Signage Expo back when that existed. Unfortunately, that show, as you know, is not in existence any longer. And I'm in awe of what Intel has done. As you know, Intel is in all sorts of products, embedded with their chips, but they're in an enormous amount of the IoT products, and digital products are being driven by by Intel, and I'm excited to have Jose as a panelist today. And then finally, last but certainly not least, Rich Ventura. Rich and I have been friends for almost 20 years, and you know him, of course. I think the first time I ever heard the term digital signage actually spoken came out of Rich's mouth I don't know, 15, 18 years ago at least. He's the currently the vice president of B2B at Sony Electronics Professional Group, which is why we're here today. So Rich is going to give us his insight, but his insight goes deeper than his role at Sony. His insight has influenced the digital signage market and the AV market for many years. He's an expert in analytics, and there's also some great advice that's going to come from him because of his global perspective on this. Now, all of the panelists today have a global perspective, and I'm excited to hear their opinions on everything. So, how about we get started? Don't forget, as I said, you have the ability to ask questions. I want you to take the polls. Please do take the polls. And let's get started. So welcome to the panel today. Hey, everybody, how are you doing? Jose, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Gary. Good morning. Your energy is contagious.
Well, I hope I can keep up this energy. Listen, I've been looking forward to this since back in November when we first started talking about doing this. And I'm honored to be on a panel with all three of you, all four of us together. Anna, how are you feeling today?
I am feeling great, and thank you for that awesome introduction. It was a very nice setup for the event. No, I'm feeling great, and I'm really glad to be here.
And our industry's newest snowboarder, Rich Ventura, how are you doing today?
A little sore from the weekend, but doing great.
I was a little nervous when I saw that you were snowboarding this weekend because you never know. You can get hurt on these hills, and I needed you to be here today. So I'm appreciative of the fact that you're being a little bit cautious. So thank you. And you're doing well, Rich?
Doing outstanding. It's another great day.
So, Jose, I'm going to start with you because you have an interesting perspective that I certainly don't have. I don't know if the other guests have this perspective with IoT. So let's back up a little bit and let's explain what that is. I mean, this is sort of fancy term for the Internet of Things. Well, what does that mean? I mean, it just means that sort of covers the trend of connecting everything to the Internet. So why would we connect everything to the Internet? The example I love to use for my class is the convenience factor of when you walk into the grocery store, not having to remember what was on your grocery list because your refrigerator is connected to the internet. It's telling you what's inside the refrigerator. You can look inside the refrigerator because it has cameras or sensors. It'll tell you if you've got prescriptions because inside your grocery store you have a pharmacy. So from a consumer example, I see this incredible opportunity for connecting devices together and making me more efficient as a human because I definitely don't carry around a grocery list with me. But from a professional perspective, where are we with IoT and sort of what is the play there and sort of what should we be looking for in the AV and digital signage spaces? I think I'm not hearing Jose. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go to Anna, and I'm going to come back to Jose on that question. Anna, I want to ask you a question. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but look, hey, here's the thing, everyone. We are live right now. This is actually 11:38 a.m. on the East Coast. We're live right now, so this is going to happen. Jose's back. Jose, will you have a chance to answer my question? Or we lost you for a second there.
Can you hear me now, Gary?
Yes, we can. I can see and hear you.
Great. So, we hear about the Internet of Things all the time, on newspapers, on magazines, on television. And over the last 15 years as an industry, we really focus on making devices connected and intelligent. And there were three trends that really help us. The increase in compute, the increase in bandwidth, and the increase in sensors, and the reductions in costs. So today we can manufacture solutions that just 15 years ago would have cost hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars for just a few $100s. But in the last 2 years, we're really seeing that devices not only are becoming connected and intelligent, they're also becoming autonomous. And there's really 5 technologies that are key. We're seeing advances in compute, advances in bandwidth with 5G, with computer vision, with sensors, analytics, and artificial intelligence. So basically now devices can not only be connected and intelligent, but they can also be autonomous. And this is a great opportunity. We hear a lot about autonomous cars, but we're going to have autonomous retail. We're going to have autonomous factories. becoming autonomous and frictionless. And we'll talk more about that during this talk.
Hey, Gary, I think we are not able to hear you here. So your questions are going out a little
Well,
faster.
all right, sorry about that, everyone.
All right.
I am back, but we are, as I said earlier, we are live, and this is what happens when we are live. So I'm going to go to Anna next. We're going to come back to you, Jose, on that IoT example because we're going to talk more about that. But as far as connectivity goes, Anna, your world has always been connected because you've been sending content to these outdoor displays through the network for years. And so the connectivity issue with 5G is just going to make it even more powerful and give you backup. But I would love for you to kind of tell me where we are right now, sort of a status of your industry, because your industry is going to steer a lot of not just the advertising world, but a lot of the hardware that's going to go into that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our industry, well, we're definitely the oldest form of advertising. We've been around since, I would argue, the cave painting. So way, way, way before digital, right? People have been putting messages on screens, but digital has really helped our industry, reach more people and be more flexible and nimble in messaging that we're putting out there. Saying that we're going currently through a big transformation. There's still a lot of static inventory, still a lot of traditional inventory, but I would argue that with 5G and also, frankly, coming out of the pandemic that we've been in, when it's been very important for advertisers to, again, be very fast and nimble in the way they are communicating with their audiences, that has really speeded up the digital evolution that we're going through. So we are currently in a massive digital transformation where we're building out lots of digital signage everywhere. We're also undergoing a transformational shift where we're starting to automate the way we're putting messages out there. So programmatic is on the rise, and we're very much looking forward to what the future has to bring for us. 5G is certainly going to help us, not just putting out static images out there, but I also think that video is going to be a big thing for our industry. And obviously with better connectivity, it's going to be easier for us to use the platform, not just to display static messages, but also video and other forms of out-of-home advertising.
And Anna, are you considering part of your landscape everything that's outside that's a display? Because we also see, I mean, let's talk about things like fast food restaurants and the way that they're changing and re-engineering their stores, where it's not just the menu display outside, but also the ability to actually physically order outside. And now more of that stuff that you had to do inside is becoming outside. Are you part of that as well? Are you bringing that in as part of your infrastructure?
Yes, I think you could argue that out-of-home advertising is any form of advertising that is connected to a specific location or a screen. It doesn't have to be outdoors. It can just as well be indoors, retail, point of care, restaurants, things like that. Anywhere where you're connecting to a consumer based on a context and a location. So that's definitely part of what we're doing. There's a lot of technology advancements also outside of just sort of 5G that enables that now. Again, the pandemic has driven up that, around QR codes and AR and other forms of technologies that you can use to, really connect with the consumer and have a two-way communication.
Yeah, this is what's awesome about where we are today with where we're all kind of online in the same kind of environment. We were sort of forced into everyone doing business virtually rather than in person, is that you get to connect with people all around the world on the fly. So yeah, it's not awesome that we all have to stay at home. It's not awesome that we're limited in where we can go, but it's awesome in the fact that we are now connected to people anywhere in the world in any moment in time. And that's the value of IoT. One of the questions, we've already got a question coming in here I'm going to come back to Jose and ask him to answer this. And I got a question for Rich real quickly. I knew this question was going to get asked, Jose. I want you to just address it head on right away. With things being connected to the internet, what about, the security issues? How is that being dealt with? I know that Intel is a leader in security. But I'd love for you to just address that really quickly and just get that out of the way, because that's going to be a question that's going to come up in everyone's mind.
Yeah, when you look at the Internet of Things, security is top of mind, and typically is the biggest concern where you're rolling out a network. And you really had to take security into consideration in all aspects of your development, from designing for security in the hardware and the software and in the network. So definitely is top of mind. One of the things that we're starting to see is, because a lot of the data now is being generated by consumers, the compute is moving to the edge. So that we have the rise of edge compute. So we're starting to see devices become a lot more intelligent and more, because of that need for data security and that data being generated at the edge by consumers.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, so I wanted the security issue just to be addressed, and we can move on because there's so much other things that I know people want to talk about here. But if you have another specific question, Marquis, that you'd like to have addressed about that, please feel free to ask. Rich, I'm going to come to you. So I want you to kind of remove your Sony hat for a second, because we're going to come back to Sony in just a second, because you do make every part of that ecosystem of products that we've been talking about that serve that content in all different ways. But you have an expertise in analytics, and you have an expertise in gathering data and using data, which is related to what we've been talking about with IoT, and is certainly driving the content that's being put on displays in Anna's world. Where are we with regard to data? Since you and I last talked about this at DSE 2019, I'd love for you to give me an update on where we are on that, and sort of what are the opportunities that are available. If I'm an integrator watching this today, and I'm talking about integrating, I think we all immediately think and know that we integrate products, and we are really good at that. But this data opportunity is huge.
It is. It's funny. I don't even just look at it externally. I even look at how I use it inside our business. Data is critical for you to set your plan and your strategies. We talk about any deployment. You've got to go through the stages of that deployment. You're building out your ideation. What do you want to do? You're defining your objectives. You're building out your strategies. Well, all of that's measured by data, the effectiveness, the impact, everything you do. Then how data is used can then allow you to really define the type of content, where you play your content, how long you play your content, the impact of your content, all of those things. So that's kind of the base layer to it. Then you add that next layer, which is really dynamic, right? So content changing because you have people entering a space, content changing because you have heavy inventory of something or price. Now we start looking at attribution. Totally different conversation. This starts getting into a lot of where Anna's world is. We start laying out the attributes of a piece of content against the audience. It's getting triggered. You're measuring it. You're understanding it. That is where this industry is moving. If we look at digital signage, 15, 16 years ago, it was all about, I'm going to put a static menu board up and I'm going to tell you my price and we're going to go on with it, right? Now it's that menu board can change because maybe you're charging less for it during the lunch hour than you are at dinner, or maybe you're running a special promotion with the NBA. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. It's all driven by data. Data really proves whether your message and your plan is working or not.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I look at it is, if you don't tell the customer it exists, they're not going to know that they can do it. If they don't know that, for example, they can connect their sign to their point of purchase display or even their inventory. Another example is you're running low on one piece of inventory, but you have a bunch of something else. You can switch up the visuals to accommodate that in real time. You don't have to do it manually. And Anna, let's just get the COVID year out of the way. 2020 was a bad year. 2020 was not the year we all wanted to have. So let's get that out of the way. But in reality, it offered some opportunities. And one of the most interesting ones, I think, is what I would kind of call gesture control and voice control improvements were significant in 2020 with development. With COVID-19 and people not wanting to necessarily touch things, a question that came in from Ed Stock, who's one of our attendees today: how is OAAA seeing people interact with signage going forward? What's the solution? What's the magic solution there?
Well, I mean, we see in particular QR codes. I think we've seen this year has been a sort of a technology that was somewhat dormant and felt a little bit yesterday's news that have really kind of come back on the rise. But I believe voice control and other ways of communicating with signs will be big as well. And then, of course, there's the ability, as we're going into again more programmatic environments and automating a lot of the advertising that we're displaying. Advertisers will be able to use their own data or other data sources to better target consumers where they are with intelligent messaging. So it's not just about the one-to-one communication between the consumer and the signage. It's also the messages that the advertiser can send based on the fact that they might have an idea of who that consumer potentially might be, where he is, what sort of weather he's surrounded by, what location, etc. So it's an intelligence that's built into the system, as well as different forms of technologies that you could use to communicate.
Yeah, I want to remind everyone that there are poll questions. One of the latest poll questions just popped up. When are you returning to work? We want to know. Are you already back, or is it going to be a while? We want you to answer that poll question. Also, if you click on the questions tab, you can actually submit a question. Those questions I just asked were submitted through the system that you're watching today. Jose, I want to come back to you. IoT is going to have an impact on every segment of the industry, and offices and schools specifically. There's a lot of development going on there with products and opportunities. What are you seeing happen specifically in classrooms? What IoT technologies are being used that are helping the classroom world?
Yeah, Gary, first of all, I wanted to jump in on the last question. The last question was awesome for Ned Stock. You might not know this, but Ed Stock, Rajmani, and I had the privilege of funding the digital signage business at Intel. So I worked with him for a long time. And I completely agree with him. We're seeing a new era of frictionless solutions. During COVID, some of our customers developed robots that disinfected hospital rooms in Wuhan. They would come in, the robot would come in with ultraviolet light, disinfect the room, and that would reduce the risk of the staff being getting sick. We're seeing customers that are developing digital baristas that are going into airports, that are going into hospitality. We're seeing autonomous stores in retail being deployed in China, in Southeast Asia, in France, in Germany. Frictionless is definitely on the rise because of COVID. Now, what's happening in education? We have invested in education for a number of years now. Over the last few years, we probably have transformed over anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million classrooms in China to digital. And what we're seeing in the classroom is we're seeing the rise of the connected classroom and the connected school, where now you have edge compute with all these capabilities that I talked about, with high bandwidth, with computer vision, with analytics, with artificial intelligence in the classroom. And this is allowing the creation of a lot of new use cases in the classroom. For example, today you can have an amazing teacher for chemistry in Shanghai broadcast the class to a remote village, in Western China. The teachers have access to content. They don't have to if they have 6 students in the class, they don't have to take attendance. The artificial intelligence engine does that automatically. There's just so many improvements. Somebody mentioned security. If there's a threat to the school, the edge compute can lock up all the windows and all the doors so nobody can enter the classroom, and you can protect the children. So there's just so many use cases that can be implemented when you start bringing, compute, bandwidth, sensors, analytics, and artificial intelligence into the classroom.
One thing that happened in 2020, you could argue, is the commoditization of video. I don't think anyone's going to actually go around any place and say we need an audio conferencing system here, here, and here. Everything's going to be video and audio. But the advantage of the commoditization of video is that no one's afraid of it any longer. Everyone's sort of re-engineering their processes to accommodate it. And we had an interesting question come in. Rich, I'm going to put you on the spot. Because I think I know the answer to this, but I would love to hear it from Sony's perspective. Who determines the trends in this in our industry? Are the ideas, is there like a secret task force? The question comes in from Chris Terranova. Is there a secret task force within Sony that's determined these? Or are we actually looking at what the consumers are doing and then building products based on that? Rich, I'd love to hear from Sony's perspective how you deal with that. How do you build new products and how do you come up with new technology like that?
I wish there was a secret consortium that did all the work and make our lives easier. You know what? It depends on a lot of things. First off is looking at consumer buying habits and how they're engaging with it, looking how they're using content, how they're using audio, how they're using video. There's a lot of market research data out there as well. It's compiling all that, and it's a lot of work that's done inside the house where we take that data to really understand the direction and the trends the industry is going towards. But it's also panels like this and listening to individuals from whether it's from the advertising space or the audio space. It doesn't matter because all those trends come together. In fact, I'd say probably one of the most influential things that I actually sat through and listening to had nothing to do with our industry that I deal with at all. And it was the gaming industry. It's a big industry for Sony, but it doesn't impact my traditional B2B space. But listening how they're handling data, how they're handling video, audio, processing content and rendering things, that becomes very impactful for our business. So we look at listening to that, and then how end users are engaging with that technology is really impactful as we look at how we drive digital signage and the content needs that are needed out there in the industry.
Rich, I want to ask you a follow-up question related to that. The entire time I've been in the industry, which is almost 30 years now, it's almost like all the products we put into spaces are physically operate or physically take up space in the room, and then people ultimately adapt them as they become comfortable with them or as they see a personal value proposition for it. I remember back when PowerPoint first started to become popular, there was a big resistance because teaching had been taught the same way for many years. Why do I need to go from asynchronous or nonlinear to linear with PowerPoint? And all of a sudden, everyone saw the advantage of a tool like that, making you more efficient. When will we see the products? And I guess this could be answered both of Jose and Rich, but I want to ask Rich first. When will we see products integrate more of the technologies more seamlessly or immerse them into the products better, in the sense that they're not little standalone opportunities, but you have a collision of products? I think your Edge product is a good example of that because it's really 5 or 6 products in one, even though you might only use it for one application. So maybe you could use that as an example.
Well, I think part of it is standardization. As an industry, we've done in certain areas, we've done an awesome job in standardizing video inputs, for example. But then you have a disconnect when we start looking at control codes or different things happening. That plays into it. I think the more that end users engage with the product, the more that manufacturers work together and engage one another, you start seeing that true integration. You bring up Edge, and Edge, is an amazing solution from Sony, which allows us to do handwrite recognition and tracking with cameras and changing backgrounds and really creating a collaborative environment using cameras and edge processing and cloud services. That is a great example of using multiple technologies. You have video with the cameras, you've got analytics and AI built into the box, you've got cloud tied in with it, you got integration to certain LMSs and stuff like that. I mean, that was driven out of necessity. And I would say Sony was great in that we were forward thinking. Who would have thought 2020? This is a great technology solution that's going to take 2021, 2022, and beyond. And we're seeing that from a lot of different companies that are being very creative and looking at it and say, there's this major challenge, this major problem happening in industry. I need to bring everything together so that I can really drive value and solve those pain points for the customer.
And Jose, wouldn't Intel be a driver of that? I mean, I would think with your influence in these companies, couldn't you convince these companies? Rich just hit on a key thing. Companies have to work together to actually make that happen, not work in their separate silos. And the solutions that we're providing as AV integrators and solutions providers require us to work within each silo and pick ecosystems that we like. Can't you influence that? When will we see more of that collaborative work?
We do it all the time, Gary. I mean, we say at Intel that we know the future because we're building it. But the truth is that no single company can build the future. We have to work with our ecosystem of partners, with system integrators, with software providers. But to the question of integrating technology, and making it seamless. One of the things that has happened because of COVID is that we're seeing the rise of the new digital consumer. I mean, if you look at, for example, myself, I order almost everything online and it gets delivered to my home. All my entertainment is online. My office is at home. So to some extent, consumers today have embraced digital transformation more than ever. In fact, I think consumers today are ahead of the enterprise. Before COVID, some companies, some enterprises invested in digital transformation, and they have done really well. And some of them went kind of halfway, many didn't. And the companies that didn't invest in digital transformation are having a really hard time now. But now, because the consumer has embraced digital transformation, these companies don't have a choice. They have to embrace it. And as compute moves to the edge, all these use cases that we're talking about are just going to become applications on the platform. So it will be a lot easier to, as you said, the platform is doing 6 different things. Like the edge compute that we're putting into classrooms is doing analytics, is doing artificial intelligence, is counting students, is counting attendance, is broadcasting video, is recording video. I mean, is helping the teacher collect analytics to be more effective, is downloading content from web so that the teacher can illustrate new concepts in video. So I think this is going to have to happen, and COVID is accelerating this digital transformation.
Yeah, I hope that you're right there. And I want to come back to you because we actually have a question from Lisa J. Shanley. Great question. It's the question I would have probably thought of asking at the end, but I think now's a great time to ask this question because there's so much of digital signage that's that's going to affect the future of our market. And I'm going to back into that in just a second. But if you had to put your magic future seeing hat on and you had to think about what the world's going to look like with regard to digital signage 10 years or 20 years from now, what do you think is going to be different?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah, I'm asking you that, Anna. Sorry. I'd love to ask you that. Yeah.
20 years. That's a long horizon.
It is.
Without aging myself too much, I can say that, I've been in the, at least in the sort of in the tech industry longer than that. If it was impossible, I think it's impossible to forecast even 3 years in certain ways. I do think that, ideally, what I want it to be is, that we are then living in a world where, it's not all digital, right? Like I think that there is a certain sense of digital fatigue already now, especially after this pandemic, right? Where people, I hope that we will still interact in person with each other too. I think that's going to continue to become more valuable, if nothing else, we've learned that now. But I think in 10 to 20 years, I think we've figured out how to use screens more effectively without being intrusive. I think everything will be connected, right? And communicate with different devices will communicate with each other. There will be more intelligence, but I hope that we will be in a world where, again, privacy and intrusiveness is less apparent. I think that there will be security solutions, around biometrics and things, so you can actually identify who's who and doing what, but in a non-intrusive way. I think screens will just be so much prettier and everywhere, right? I think anything will probably be a screen at that time. I think we're going to have to think completely out of the box and where we are right now, because if we go back, I remember early on in my career when I worked in the telecoms industry on mobile side, and when 3G or actually 2G was sort of coming out, it was impossible to envision what the business and use cases would be for that technology. And fast forward, right, like the world has completely changed, and I think that is probably around 20 years ago. So 20 years from now, I think I think it's really hard to see where we are, but I think we will have learned to maneuver technology in a way that it's much more intuitive and less intrusive than I think a lot of consumers today perceive it to be.
Yeah, I think even if you could have imagined last year where we'd be this year, I don't think you'd even imagine digital. Like you can't have been for. Let me give you an example. Digital signage is the reason why things are opening back up quicker than before, and I'll give you some very specific examples. A lot of stores, if you lived in states or countries where things had opened up a little bit late summer, early fall, and then closed back up. If you went to the store, there was somebody at the door who was making sure that not too many people were in the store, and also making sure that you didn't have a fever and making sure that you were okay to go in. So it was looking at your temperature, but it was also doing occupancies. All this is being automated now with digital signage. So you're going to see a lot of this just naturally integrated, which, oh, by the way, can be used to send advertising content. And we can actually measure the results in real time of what stuff is working versus what stuff isn't working. So you have companies from everything from Lululemon all the way through big retailers that are using signage to help open themselves back up. And if I'd asked you that a year ago, Anna, you probably couldn't have predicted that, even though you knew that the opportunity and you knew that it existed. Jose, you've been showing this technology at shows. Intel's always done a collaborative booth where you've shown all your partners. You've shown them that they can do this for years, but it took the pandemic for that actually to occur. So if I'm an integrator right now, what are 2 or 3 or maybe 4 things that I should be thinking about going and leading with regard to signage that would help me get in the door right now, Jose? Some of the technologies that you've helped trigger getting us back to work. I think you might be muted, Jose.
Sorry about that, Gary. We're seeing that digital signage is being integrated into other devices. It's getting integrated into interactive panels displays in education. It's getting integrated into kiosks. And these kiosks are going everywhere. So one of the applications that I'm seeing is we talked about the era of frictionless solutions, right? And we're seeing, for example, kiosks that are going into banks that have now avatars. And a bunch of our customers are doing trials with those avatars. We're seeing mobile kiosks that they clean hospitals, touchless mobile kiosks for ordering in QSR. So we're really seeing an explosion of kiosks in a lot of different verticals. And it's just another form of digital signage being integrated where it's actually the digital signage is in the past, there basically were 3 main networks of digital signage. You had the information networks, you had the advertising networks, and then you had the hybrids. But now, in addition to that, the digital signage in the kiosk mode is actually running applications. So we're seeing digital signage becoming very versatile. If it goes into a QSR, it can do order taking, it can do advertising, it can do information, it can do news. So some of the new trends that we're seeing is more collection of data. Once you collect data, if you have analytics, you can analyze the data and make decisions. And then if you have an artificial intelligence engine, then you can learn from those decisions and they make better decisions over time. So really, we're seeing a lot of advances in digital signage, and a lot of them have been accelerated because of COVID.
Yeah, they already existed. In fact, like I said, I saw them in your booth many years ago, and I was wondering why I wasn't seeing some of this, but some of it was forced because of where we have been over the last year. Look, one of the first poll question results are already back. 46% of you are already back to work. 46% of you who are online right now are already back to work. That probably mirrors about what we've seen, certainly here in North America. 11% of you said you're going to go back in the next 3 months. Another 17% of you said you'd be back within 6 months. That equals more than 75% of the population going to be back in the next 6 months. There's a great opportunity for you to go out there and help companies open back up. Some of the obvious solutions are obviously temperature sensing and occupancy sensing, but Rich, some of the less obvious include the merging of signage and UCC, where you can have things like digital concierge, where people would have normally sat. You can have a digital human sitting there and providing access to buildings and access to companies. Is Sony getting a lot of call for that, or are you seeing a lot of development going on there from the integrator community, Rich?
Well, it's interesting, and dovetail a little bit back to your question with Anna about what we think that what's going to be like in 20 years. I think right now we need to figure out what it's going to be like in a year from now, and even 2 years from now. I think 20 years, it's going to be amazing how much it changes, right? And I think things like this, the integration of digital concierges in retail, having experts available as you walk down the aisle at at a Home Depot or a Best Buy or whatever to engage with them. I think that's a huge opportunity. It reduces the opportunity for people to get sick. It reduces that opportunity for people to be afraid to go into a space right now. You're reducing that. But I think what it also does is those types of solutions you tie in with kiosks and a lot of stuff that Jose's organization has been showing over the last few years now creates a new opportunity. And those are like digital virtual pop-ups. So having spaces, whether it's in a public space, a park, a mall, a sports arena, once we start going to sports arenas, having that ability of interacting, engaging with somebody when they want to, we still need to have that personal engagement, but if someone wants to engage with somebody virtually, they can do it. To give you an example, something I've seen recently, I needed to get a prescription filled and I didn't want to go into the doctor's office, didn't want to deal with all that. Instead, I was able to actually communicate with my doctor over my iPad. And we went over everything. And within 5 minutes, I had a prescription waiting, was already sent to Walgreens to go pick up. That's new. That came out of a need and a necessity. You can do the same thing. We could be ordering, I need to order a new TV. I need to order a new stereo. You can do all that stuff for people who do want to talk to somebody virtually instead of just ordering it through an app.
And the thing is, it's not obvious to the consumer and not obvious to the company who wants to provide the service how to get it started. Like if you think about it, you're a doctor's office. What do? Tell your assistant to call Zoom and figure out how to make this happen? I mean, it's not exactly that seamless. That's the value that the integrator provides, and I don't underestimate your value of providing not just the hardware to do it, but also the knowledge of the security and services things that they wouldn't think about. They may not even think about the HIPAA concerns with stuff like that. They might not think about the storage concerns with storing that kind of data. Which brings me to a question asked by Paul Regensburg, who posted a question specifically to Rich, but I think all of you could answer this, is we're seeing emerging a little bit of digital signage and mass notification in the sense that we can now take all the signs that are all over the place and turn them into emergency mass notification signs because all of it's connected to the network anyway. And once we get to 5G, that means that we literally are connected to a network with a backup network, or we can build content players and signs that are actually connected to 5G. Aren't we seeing the merging of those two industries, Rich?
Oh, totally. It's funny. 9 months ago, I remember seeing a press release coming out of the UK from Signage Live announcing that their platform is now communicating to the desktop. So now you could have at the desktop level with your remote workers, they could get they could get alerts, they could get messages, all kinds of stuff onto their screens. And I thought, this is kind of neat. Hopefully this works really well. Let's fast forward 9 months. That's a critical need now. Think about the amount of workforce that works remotely. That was really something that was great to see. We've seen that with other people and other mediums. I mean, BrightSign's been doing it. You go down a list of all the different CMS companies. They're doing it more and more now. So we're seeing that. Then you're seeing this integration of Zoom and Teams and other collaboration systems. So now that one screen that I put into a corporate office no longer is just saying, welcome to my office. It's now, you can be using your collaboration. It allows you to send different levels of information to it. I mean, it's that meld or blending of the technologies. It was inevitable. COVID helped fast track it for us.
Anna, I see an opportunity in the answer to the second question. The poll question was, when will you feel good about going back to live events? Only 4% of people said now. Only 2% of people said 1 to 3 months. 40% said 4 to 6 months. But the majority said not until we have herd immunity or the vaccine has eradicated the virus, which Pfizer themselves, and you may or may not know this, but I'm in the Pfizer COVID-19 trial, and I got my vaccine back in September. I was unblinded in the late December, so I did actually get the vaccine. And even I would be nervous about going to a live event. But your industry can help with that because you're building giant signs that can set up a system where we can still be in an environment, almost like these drive-in movie theaters have become popular, drive-in concerts, where you could still be in your bubble, but now spread it outside the stadium and actually provide content wherever we want to provide content. Do you see your industry sort of playing in this new space as well, Anna?
That's an interesting question. I haven't actually thought about it that way. I certainly think a lot about when people can go back to live events, running a trade association. We're hoping soon, but I think I agree with everybody else. I think it's going to take a lot longer than we believe it will. I do think, though, that a big part of out of home is experiential marketing. Building experiences that then can be shared, through social media and other ways, but that is sort of an out of home installation. And I do actually believe that the future of events in particular, I mean, we have a lot of stadiums and cinemas and other places like that. So yeah, I think it's a clear possibility for us to building physical experiences that are yet not person to person. But I think I honestly, and I do think our industry is definitely going to change, based on the pandemic and again, talked about it, how we speeded up the digital transformation because of it, and again, our connection to mobile and other technologies that will help us sort of stay relevant and in front of the consumer where they are. But I think one thing we learned this year is that don't or expect the unexpected, and I think that things can change again very fast. I think the underlying digital transformation that we've gone through and that Jose talked about before, companies that didn't do digital transformation so well in the past that were forced now to learn. I would say a lot of companies had that on their minds, but didn't even really know what they were talking about, right? I think we've now learned we have to create new use cases, and we have to change differently. I think that's not gone away, but I think where we will be in a year from now it's impossible, actually. So not 10 years, a year from now is impossible to foresee. Just a year ago, we didn't know where we would be now. Things can change fast. So,
but it's clear.
Use of the signage we have, but I wouldn't say that, we know where we're going to be when it comes to physical events.
Yeah, but I think I would think the whole panel agrees that there's going to be a time where we're in hybrid, if not forever, because we're going to be at a hybrid of being in person. And I think what happened with the pandemic, that I think the biggest outcome from the pandemic that's come from our market is that we've been talking about for years, because we're all in the digital space, that, hey, when you're doing an analog thing, you should be doing a digital thing at the same time, because there's an opportunity to grow your audience rather than being scared that your analog people aren't going to show up. That's short-sighted. So I think this hybrid opportunity, the example I gave you is one example, but there's billions of others that will come out of where we are in the pandemic. Will come due to our industry helping drive it, saying, hey, did you know you can do this? And I think a lot of it comes down to the customer doesn't know how to ask the right questions, so we have to be able to read what they're saying. We had a great question come in from Alan Farman, who says, where does augmented reality go with regard to, and he gave some examples, museums, retail, classrooms, other. I've been curious about this because for a couple of years now, Apple, for example, has teased the idea of augmented reality glasses that look like regular glasses. Of course, Rich, your company, Sony, dominates video gaming, and augmented reality and VR are all part of that already. When will we see that in more of a mainstream application where integrators can provide that to the consumers that they have now, the customers they have now, Rich?
Well, Jose's organization showed some great examples. I think it was 2 or 3 NRAs ago, where they were showing the use of virtual reality planogramming and utilizing the technology with the headsets and building planograms and understanding. And actually it was used as a couple of ways. One was a training perspective, so training people how to build out their planogram in a retail environment, but also just doing the physical work and working with robotics. That's stuff that's already being out there, and I think we've seen that been fast forward, and I think we're seeing more and more of it. We're seeing, I think one of the things I think we will see if we start talking about live events and everything like that is you're going to see a cross mix of these very large scale installations, maybe large LED walls and things like that, where there'll be an AR or VR component tied in with it. So then people can interact and engage with each other, engage with the screen, and do some different things. So I think we're going to see more and more of that, as Anna said, and we've all said. The fact of us going back to normal, what we were pre-COVID, I don't see it happening. So we're going to be utilizing the tech a lot differently. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing companies look at ways to use VR in more of the collaboration as we work from home. So you feel like you're in the room together, or even doing planograms. How does a store build out a planogram where you have multiple people working remotely. So I think a lot of that tech is going to play into it, and the video game industry is really going to be a heavy driver behind that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think if I can add to that, I mean, this is not just COVID, right? Like this happened even before. There's a whole generation or two generations behind us, right? That are gamers that, grew up with Snapchat, that are used to AR and VR already, will want to operate in that environment. I mean, I would argue that the people who handle the pandemic the best were the gamers who already were in that environment. And I think as they're kind of coming into careers and, living their lives differently, when our kids grow up, right, and get to be grown-ups, they're going to handle this very differently. And they're already living in an augmented virtual world. So that, with a little 5G and better technology, I think that's definitely the future. Certainly something that advertisers are interested in.
Yeah, I think the key challenge for us is that we have a lot of technologies that are maturing. We have computer vision, tremendous advances in computer vision, tremendous advances in analytics, augmented reality, artificial intelligence. The key challenge for us now is really understanding the consumer and understanding in what mode is the consumer operating. If we just look at retail, for example, there are some times when I'm in what I call productivity mode. I just want to go into the store, get my milk, get my eggs, get my bread, basically seamless, make my payment seamless, just walk out of there, in and out, right? Convenience. And there's other modes when I'm like, hey, I want to go to the mall this weekend. I want to discover new products. I want to try the new products. I want to find new products. So I think that's why the computer vision and the analytics and artificial intelligence is so critical, so that we know how to apply the technology to give the consumer what they want at the moment.
Yeah, I think all this is related to the third poll question. If you'll click on the poll tab, you'll see a question that's asking you about which of these emerging technologies are the ones that are going to affect you the most. So please answer that poll question really quickly. And to answer that question of where we're going to be 20 years from now, I want to be able to go in the grocery store, Jose, and not know where, and not have to figure out where things are. I want it to know that I'm already thinking that I need to get things, and it's telling me where to go. So that's where I think we're going to be 20 years from now, is that we don't have to think about where things are because I don't know this particular layout of this particular grocery store. And these are all topics that are top of mind. And I think that AR and VR. One thing, Anna, you'll identify with this because you and I have kids the same age. Jose too, I believe. Is that our kids look at texting the equal to making a phone call. It's the same to them. So this asynchronous, synchronous communication that to them is synchronous, but to us is asynchronous. Sending messages on TikTok is the most asynchronous thing you can do, but our kids see it as literally synchronous. They're having conversations by sending videos back and forth. That you have to think about that when you're designing systems. You have to think about the age of the user and how they're going to adopt it much quicker. And there's a great question that came in from Adam Kopelman. Do you see a quick acceleration of technology, specifically communication protocols, due to what's happened in the integration of new hardware? Do we see, like, for example, I think there's lots of ways you can answer this question. I want to ask Jose, though, but because you have every single company has a siloed way of communicating and connecting UCC together, as an example, right? And that, when will we see this more of a community effort rather than an ecosystem or a siloed effort?
I think it's starting now. I think it's starting now. I think that I mentioned how data is being created at the edge, and that's bringing compute to the edge. But now we're starting to see a convergence of networking and compute at the edge. Once you have that, you're gonna have lots of compute, lots of bandwidth. You're gonna be able, with the same edge compute that you're supporting the digital signage billboard, you're gonna be able to support gaming. You're gonna be able to do analytics and artificial intelligence. So the convergence of networking and communications and compute is starting to happen now at the edge. Great opportunity with 5G.
Yeah, and I think that you have to think about 5G is going to give us the ability to connect everything all the time. And you have to think about what are those everythings that customers aren't currently thinking about that you have the ability to now connect. And whether or not the connectivity is in the actual product or the control system or the system that you build that connects everything together, it's important for you to see those differentiations there. Rich, I want to come back to you. We do have poll results on question number 3, which technology trend will have the greatest impact on our industry over the next year. And the winner is artificial intelligence. We already see that with voice intelligence, which is a form of that. What do you think, Rich? What do you think of those results?
No, it makes total sense. I mean, AI is used across everything, whether it's audio, video, even picking out what technology you want to buy and how you deploy it. I mean, those things are all playing into it. And I think if you look at, in Anna's industry, especially, AI is so critical. Being able to lay out what ads are going to work in what environment. It's no longer the newspaper sales approach, right? You're really looking at who is the audience walking through that exact corridor at what times every day, so I can have the right advertising to it. So no, I think AI is definitely going to be one of the biggest critical growth areas for us.
All of them were very close in answers. It appears that everyone's interested in all of these new technologies. We're getting close to the end here, but I have a couple questions I want to ask really quickly. I want each person to tell me what is your can be any product, can be anything. I give you my answer as well. What is the favorite product that you've seen over the last year that kind of unexpectedly really impressed you? It doesn't have to be a brand new product, but maybe it's a product that you did not use before over the last year that really unexpectedly excited you. Anna, I'm going to start with you. What one thing has really been really impressive?
This is good. This is ridiculous, and it's very much not a new product at all. But we got for our Thanksgiving this year, we got one of those sous vides that you can sort of slow cook meat with, and it's connected to our phone, so you can sort of leave the house and have your strip steak in for whatever 20 hours. And being bored and in a pandemic, we've used that sous vide probably 2-3 times a week. So it's definitely my favorite product this year, I would say.
Jose?
I mean, for me, it has to be the some of our customers, this kiosk with ultraviolet light that can go into rooms in hospitals, that can go into trains and sanitize everything. And for me, it was just a breakthrough because, we had robots for a long time. We have ultraviolet light for a long time, but, implement them in a solution that save a lot of lives. To me, that was an amazing product.
I feel
Rich?
bad now talking about cooking. I should have used the B2B answer. Sorry about that.
No. It can B2C, C2C, or B2B. It doesn't matter, Rich.
That's my personal reflection.
It's a difficult one for me because I play with so many different gadgets and toys. Honestly, and this is going to sound really kind of homerish to say this, but Sony's with our newest digital SLR cameras. The capability of not just using it for taking photography, but doing true 4K video and being able to even use it in video conferencing applications as well. The ability that this camera has, and it's just been amazing. And I've been on board at Sony for 6 months, and it was one of the first things I got to get my hands on and play around with outside of our Bravia displays, and it's truly amazing what it does. And it was really eye-opening for me just to see how far technology has come in the camera space.
I'm going to quickly answer without any details because the product's already been talked about, but I didn't really understand the Edge analytics platform that Sony has, and I'm blown away. I mean, as soon as I finally got a real demo on the product, I decided I want one. And I think that this is going to be a product that you as an integrator should be selling and should be promoting, because I don't think you really understand this product. So if you haven't had a demo on that, I'm going to just leave it there. Jose, if you had to give everyone one piece of advice of an area that they should that they should invest in from a company standpoint to help so remember, we're talking to AV integrators that are joining us today and potential end users, that an area they should invest in to help them grow in the future or help their customers grow in the future, what would be the one thing that you would advise them? What area?
I think for integrators is really understanding their end customers better and understanding what are the business problems that end customers are trying to solve, that the brands are having. And by understanding those problems, then we can go figure out how to apply the technology to solve them. So start with what is the problem that we're trying to solve and how is it going to improve the life of the consumer.
So better analytics on your own customers. Anna, what would you say?
I would argue that, or I would actually 100% agree with Jose on that. I think we can do a lot of things with technology, but we really need to better understand what consumers want. It's absolutely key and core in advertising. And, we haven't really done a good job, I would argue. The out-of-home industry probably has, but advertising overall, understanding both what consumers want and when they want to be approached with messages. So I think understanding what they want, when they want it, and how they want it is absolutely key. And investing more time in talking to them, and just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah,
Realize
Rich?
what that is.
I would totally echo everything they said, but I'm going to add a little more to that. And this is really going towards partners and customers and everything else, is invest in your partnerships. Don't just think of a supplier, a manufacturer as a supplier or a vendor, but truly invest in a partnership, and the manufacturers do the same back to your end users. You asked earlier how we look at those trends. Well, the way you get those trends is that investment as a partnership. So you understand what's going on. You've invested in their business. They've invested in yours. They know where you're going and what you're driving towards.
Yeah, I agree with all of those as well. And I would add one little piece of advice, and that is, remember that your customers don't know what they need. If they don't know it exists, you have to make sure that you're informing them of what your capabilities are. It's amazing how many times I've heard that I had no idea you did this. So you need to make sure that they understand, because they're not paying attention. They're getting a lot of messages all the time. Anna just made the point. You're looking at these advertising messages. You're getting, her industry says 5,000 advertising messages a day. If you're getting that many messages, then you can't be paying attention to everything. So make sure your customers know what it is your capabilities are. And I want to thank all of the panelists for being here today. These are some great questions. I want to thank the questions from the attendees. I want to thank all of you for participating on the panel. I want to thank Sony for giving me the honor to lead this panel. And I want to remind you that you're going to get an email following up on this panel to offer you the ability to sign up for 2 more panels that are over the next 2 weeks. I hope that you'll join us for the Think AV Symposium series. And thank you, everyone for joining us, and have a great day.